and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Barjo. Let's get right into it, Junglist. Whether you're happy or sad about who won the cricket last week, Ricky Ponting gives you the chance to rewrite history in Ashes Cricket 2009.
Great stroke goal.
Fat Princess is the latest team-based capture the flab game to hit the PSN.
We have the prisoner.
10 years ago, if you wanted to find a higher education course in game design, you'd be inhabiting a dreamland filled with magical pixies and elves. But nowadays, things are different. Has higher education finally caught up with the needs of the games industry?
Plus, some of the most tasteless games ever made. But first, can you guess the game for this week? Answer at the end of the show.
News time, Judge. Stop saying what I'm saying. Anti-aliasing, bloom effects, sandbox, emergent gameplay. Oh, that's silly. Sorry, there's no such thing as emergent gameplay.
Good game. Warren Spector, the designer behind the classic science fiction game series Deus Ex, has been rumored to be collaborating with the Walt Disney Company on a new game since late last year. And in the past few weeks, we've finally seen some of the first production art. The game is rumored to be titled Epic Mickey, and if the pictures are anything to go by, it will be a steampunk reworking of the entire Disney universe, with a distinct dystopian atmosphere. The sketches and paintings were leaked almost simultaneously from a range of artists purporting to be working on the project, although Epic Mickey has not yet been officially confirmed or denied by either Disney or Spector's development company Junction Point Studios. Halo Wars players have been dealt a blow this week with the realization that the game's entire Xbox Live leaderboard data has been deleted. In a notice posted on the game's official website, Robot Entertainment and Microsoft's representatives revealed the deletion and confirmed that the wipe includes all single-player, multiplayer, and leaderboard data, as well as all matchmaking information from the entire history of the game. Human error has been blamed for the deletion, and Microsoft are promising that they are now putting procedures in place to stop this kind of mistake from ever happening again. American-based site Bringit.com will allow gamers to compete against each other for real cash in a range of games including Tiger Woods, Guitar Hero, Mario Kart, and FIFA, as well as team-based games like Call of Duty 4. The site will use a handicap system to separate tournaments for different skill levels. It will also take 10% from all wagers, as well as a $4 fee when winners withdraw their takings. Online gambling is illegal in Australia, but at this time, skills-based gambling is permitted.
Forget Federer versus Nadal, Holden versus Ford, Maroons versus Blue, even Kasparov versus Deep Blue. As far as great sporting rivalry goes, the battle between Australia and England for that tiny urn of ashes is about as fierce and passionate as it gets.
Don't forget Mario versus Sonic.
Oh yeah, that got pretty nasty. Ashes Cricket 2009 is a continuation of the Ponting-branded series from those self-proclaimed masters of code, Codemasters, and Australia's very own Transmission Games. Perfectly timed, like one of Punter's cover drives, this will no doubt cash in on the buzz surrounding what's going on across the pond at the moment.
The cricket video game benchmark isn't exactly a high one, Badge, but there's a lot to like here if you're partial to strapping on some pads and getting a bit of leather on your willow.
Or even if you like cricket.
With official licenses from Cricket Australia and the England Cricket Board, the game includes all the real player names, stats, and likenesses of the current Ashes squads, authentically recreated stadiums such as the hallowed turf at Lord's, and even all that gratuitous on-field advertising.
You can jump straight into the current Ashes series to rewrite the wrongs of the last few tests, or use any international side in a standard 5-day test match, 50 overs, 1-day international, or enjoy the quick thrills of a 2020 slogfest.
Though the T20 mode is minus the rock and roll intros and catchy nicknames, which really makes it the same as a one-dayer with the over limit set to 20. A genuinely informative tutorial will not only teach you the controls, but instruct you on the ins and outs of cricket itself, from the difference between a front and back foot shot to the tactical merits of mixing up your bowling attack. This really settles you into the game well, and whether you're already a cricket tragic or not, you'll actually know what you're meant to be doing.
Jung, I was relieved to find that Shane Warne has taken a break from spruiking hair restoration treatments to provide some ribbing commentary for the game.
How did you feel when a batsman pulled you for 4, Shane?
Look, when any batsman hit you for 4, it doesn't matter what sort of shot it was annoying.
He's also joined by Sir Ian Botham and Tony Grigg and a bunch of other blokes who add a really nice live commentary feel to it. I love how Tony Grigg randomly goes off on these tangents no matter what's going on the pitch, just like in real life.
Then he gets it in the right line, and of course if it's a left-hander, it's just outside the off stump. If it's a right-hander, it's quite straight. What you need to do as a bowler is to know what the right length is.
Regular cricket watchers will appreciate the use of Hawkeye in the game for those contentious LBW appeals, and enjoy the tension of a run-out being judged by an indecisive third umpire.
There's the red light.
I liked all the little informative details they've jammed in there, like the confidence bar above the bowler and the batsman, and this is affected by how well you're actually playing, and in turn affects the success of your more ambitious strokes.
Great stroke play.
High-order batsmen also have a narrower aiming cone, and this allows them to place their shots more accurately. There are occasional overthrows from sloppy fielding, genuine edges off the bat, and even the odd beamer.
Catches taking place in slow motion was a nice idea, but the QuickTime button press is almost impossible to stuff up.
Unlike other cricket games that usually devolve into just hitting boundaries off every ball, Ashes Cricket 2009 really rewards and encourages proper tactical play. It's clear that a lot of effort has gone into this to make it relatively authentic, and I think diehard cricket fans won't have that much to whinge about.
Well, not unless they're Pommy Badge, or until a few bugs and glitches are discovered. We saw a few small quirks in there. Hopefully the online head-to-head multiplayer won't turn into a comedy of exploits.
This is definitely one of the better cricket games in recent years, and I really found myself getting bored, and it wasn't really repetitive even against the AI. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 leg-spinning chickens.
Yeah, I agree, Badge. It's definitely an improvement over 2007's Ricky Ponting International Cricket, and I think it hits that good balance between arcade fun and simulation. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 short-pitched rubber chickens.
And we actually caught up with Ricky Ponting just before he went over to the UK. Ricky Ponting, welcome to Good Game.
Thanks, mate.
Our forum goers, we told them that we were meeting you, and the biggest question they want to ask is, are you a gamer? Do you play any other sorts of games?
I'm a small gamer. I'm not a huge gamer. I'm not in the same category as some of my teammates, but I guess with the lifestyle that we lead and being away from home as much as we are and in hotel rooms as much as we are, it probably leads us to play a lot, yeah.
The other question that our forum goers wanted to know is, how much input you had in the game, and also, was there a big scanning event where they came and scanned your face and got you into the game that way? How did they get your image?
Yeah, there was with the first game, which was probably 6 or 7 years ago now, that all happened. And as you can see, I'm still looking as young in the game today as I was back then, which is a good thing.
Some of the newer types of cricket, right, the 2020, it feels like they maybe learned something from video games. They're fast, quick matches, kind of like death matches. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think our game's always taken so long to complete. Test matches are over 5 days. For fans that wanted to go and see a result, it's a whole week out of your life before you get a result. So then our shortened version of the game was obviously 50 over cricket, and that took 7 or 8 hours to complete. Now we have 2020 cricket, which is really lending itself to the consumer. You can pack up the kids for a few hours in a day and go and watch a game that is just absolute entertainment packed.
Ricky Ponting, thanks for joining us on Good Game.
No worries, thanks, mate.
Good game.
They're not following me. 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 They're not real. They're not real. They're not real.
Most game developers go out of their way to avoid gratuitous vulgarity, offensive smut, and humor of incredibly poor taste. But then again, some don't. The next few games wholeheartedly embrace pure tastelessness, so much so that we think they may just be the most tasteless games ever invented. Here comes one now. It's called Booger Man, and it drew its inspiration from that most maligned of bodily fluids, mucus. It came out in 1994 for the Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, and in it you played the role of a caped crusader whose powers of picking and flicking were so developed that the contents of his nostrils could actually kill a man. You had to use your deadly nose nuggets and a bit of phlegm to liberate the Dimension excrement from an evil army of bogeymen. Literally everything about this game was in the poorest of taste, from the way all the game's levels were coated in a dripping green layer of nose butter, to the way you had to teleport yourself around by flushing yourself down toilet bowls. This game was so tasteless that almost everything you did in it was accompanied by the sound of a loud fart. But Boogerman isn't the only video game to be obsessed with flatulence and other more substantial bodily functions, as this next game well and truly confirms. Toilet Kids had the unbelievably tasteless premise of being all about poo-poos. And no, we're not even joking. It came out in 1992 for the NEC PC Engine, an obscure Japanese console that never came out in Australia. Be thankful for that though, good gamers, because it meant that we weren't exposed to a game where the main character is sucked down a toilet and has to poo and pee their way through a treacherous land of flying feces, levitating lavatories, and a lot of other really weird stuff. Moving away temporarily from the realms of toilet humor, however, and we soon find out that even without any bodily functions, there are games out there that find other ways of being totally tasteless. Cho Aniki, for example, is a game series that started way back in 1994, again on the NEC PC Engine, and it featured some of the least subtle sexual innuendo in video game history. You played as Samson, who loves to shoot other semi-nude muscle men with the sparkly lasers that come from a hole in the top of his head. If that wasn't weird enough, almost every single thing in any of the Cho Aniki games was in some way a thinly veiled sexual illusion of the weirdest order, like this. And before you can scrub that image from your mind, we'll get back to what we know best, bodily fluids. Postal 2 came out on the PC in 2003, and although it is still one of the most tactlessly gory games of all time, featuring some of the most stupefyingly gratuitous violence ever produced in video game form, Postal 2 really showed how classy it wasn't when it allowed the player to urinate on anyone and anything within their firing range. A few drops of pee would send most game characters fleeing for the nearest shower and a bar of soap, although some didn't take too kindly to being used as a makeshift water closet. And finally, the award for most tasteless video game we've ever seen goes to this. The Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball series set a new low point for poor taste when it was first released in 2003. The game's premise is dubious right from the start. You have to take a group of gorgeous females with impossibly large assets, dress them up in the skimpiest bikinis you can find, and then let them out onto the sand and let the jiggle physics do the rest.
I did it!
Simply put, these were perving simulators, and while they may have impressed many a teenage boy with their cheap titillation, they didn't impress connoisseurs of good taste and respectability, like us. So watch your step, gamers, because you never know where the next game of incredibly poor taste will pop up, and you wouldn't want to sully your reputation by playing them, would you? Good game! 50 years from now, when computer games replace sports, all our little Counter-Strike players are going to get old. Their reaction speeds might fade, but they've got the experience. What are they to do?
Well, they're going to become the first generation of Counter-Strike managers, John.
That's right, and what better training program than the web-based CSManager? It's a hilarious take on the football manager formula where you take your team of Counter-Strike players to the top.
Instead of a stadium as your money earner, you have a Counter-Strike server. Instead of selling seats, you sell spectator slots. And you manage everything from getting sponsors, training up your players, transferring with other teams, and you even manage injuries.
Anyone who's ever been in a Counter-Strike clan will have a good laugh at the individual player stats. Instead of characteristics like loyalty to the football club, they have this player lives at home so his mum might interrupt a war and his performance will decrease. Or this player has a girlfriend and his dedication to the clan might waver.
Of course, there's massive poetic license considering that all manager games revolve around finance. You know, everything from physio to motivation is monetized in some way. And there's no money in real-life Counter-Strike, especially since big competitions like CGS have closed down, but the game kind of needs it, so you just let it be.
It's obviously not as in-depth as other sports manager games, and this mainly shows through in the tactics. There are gun-buying strategies, and most of your positional strategies revolve around sync points that you place on the map, where your entire team has to meet up before moving onwards. The system works, but it's not ideal, and it's highly reliant on the player's individual skill. And of course, if you want to see the match in action, you're going to have to pay a little bit of real money to become a VIP member to see where your tactics went wrong.
And there's a lot of things missing, like boosting and coordinated nade throwing, which is essential in competitive Counter-Strike. But, you know, this is here for the novelty, I think. I can't believe someone actually made this, you know? It's good for a laugh.
Good for a laugh, but it does take some commitment. I guess it's up to you if the novelty wears off before you get into the thick of it. It's good you can try it for free, though. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that you can record demos and share them with the community as well. I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game. 10 years ago, you'd be hard-pressed to find a college course that would set you up in the games industry.
But nowadays, there's a plethora of courses to choose from.
But are our higher education establishments really servicing the needs of the games industry? And are the graduates landing their dream jobs?
Ray finds out more.
So you want to get into game design? Well, there are plenty of courses out there that can now help you on your way. I decided to get learned and find out a little bit more about the courses on offer.
I'm Dr. Mark Finn. I'm the course coordinator of the Bachelor of Arts in Games and Interactivity here at Swinburne. The course is designed as an avenue for people that aren't particularly interested in the programming side of games to still have an input into the games industry. So we focus more on things like character design, level design, and writing for games.
If it doesn't work for the target audience, then chances are it's not going to work very well at all.
Parents and students have different expectations. Sometimes parents are terrified that they're going to spend 3 years playing games. The students themselves sometimes expect to walk straight out of the degree and get into a games industry job. And while that does happen, it's a tough industry to get into. So we don't try to delude them into thinking it's an easy industry to get into, but we give them the best chance they can possibly have.
You don't really know what you want to be doing when you're, just coming fresh out of high school. And Swinburne had a big double degree where you do learn games, but you also learn a full IT component and you learn a full multimedia component. So if by the time you get to the end of the degree, games aren't really for you, you've still got, a whole lot of options open.
But what if uni just isn't your thing? Or you didn't get the grades you needed to get into your dream course? Well, now there are also plenty of colleges offering game design courses.
My name's Andrew Orman. I'm a lecturer here at Quantum College and I teach game design. At the moment I'm teaching 2 separate units. One is on basic game design, creating a game design document, coming up with an idea for a game and figuring out how it's going to work and what's required to make it work. And the other unit is specifically on level design. And level design is about getting the most out of the game design, creating the play space and the action and the puzzles that the player will encounter.
How has the popularity of the course changed since it started?
Well, I think it's becoming more and more accessible and the games themselves are becoming more mainstream. They're being seen by more people as being an art, as being a craft. Very similar in the way films are seen. With an increase in the popularity of people getting hold of home video cameras, now it's about being able to program simply in Flash, even just to make the simplest types of games. So games are becoming mainstream and therefore people want to be able to create them.
So can you tell me about the process of setting up a course?
There's a lot of consultation with the industry. I know Quantum's gone out and asked them, what are the skills you want out of the people that we're teaching?
We try to meet with developers on a fairly regular basis. What they're looking for now is a balanced kind of graduate, someone who is good with the technical skills but also good communicators.
When I got into games, there was no curriculum for anything involved in video games, but now there is. And back in the old days, it seemed to be only about program computer science skills only. And just recently, past few years, the ability to go, okay, that's great because that's necessary, but from a creative standpoint, let's see if we can find the tomorrow's big idea people.
One of the key features of the degree is this thing we call IBL, industry-based learning, which offers students an opportunity to go out and work in the games industry as part of the degree. And what we're finding already, even though we've only just begun IBL for games, is that students that go out into the industry get picked up by the industry and sometimes come back and finish their degrees part-time. So it's been quite successful.
I took a year out last year to do industry-based learning at a company called Transmission Games, formerly IR Gurus, and I worked there for a year before moving on to becoming a contractor at Big Ant Studios, and so I'm taking a break from there for a while to get my final year out of the way. When I went out into industry, I really had no expectations as to, what kind of standard was expected. Because I was put on such an experienced team, you ended up learning really fast, and I ended up finding out later in the piece that how I was doing was actually exceptional, and the things that I'd been learning were quite valuable.
There are several avenues to get into the industry. The first one is to do it through a hobby. You create a show reel of your amateur work that catches somebody's attention, and then you turn that into a job. And that's how I got started. I made a lot of Half-Life levels, and that got me into level design, which then moved me into game design.
Once you get into industry, you realise that most of the people that are in industry don't actually have degrees. You can get into industry just by, going off and developing skills yourself.
They are looking for, I think, a lot more experience than anything. They don't really recognise the course yet.
You really don't need a degree to get in at the moment, but as degrees are becoming more commonplace, I think it will become a requirement for people.
Do you think the industry can sustain the number of increased graduates coming through?
I think it can. It's an expanding field. The access to the technology is getting easier to get, the access to the knowledge is easier, and people are experimenting. More people are getting into the games industries. Now, does that mean that they can get in necessarily to an established company? Maybe not. But I think we're going to see a big rise in the number of independent developers.
It's very hard to put an estimate on how many graduates the industry can take in because the industry is changing so rapidly. We're facing the global economic crisis, as is everyone, but the entertainment industry tends to go fairly well in times of economic downturns. So we know a lot of companies around Melbourne are hiring more than they used to. So that's a good sign. But in terms of actual numbers, only time will tell.
The PlayStation Network has been a little quiet lately, but one of their more anticipated games of the year has just popped up online, and it's called Fat Princess.
It's set in a make-believe fantasy world where blood and cake go hand in hand. You play as one of the princess's servants, and your job is to keep her happy by building up and defending your kingdom from the opposing team.
There's a single-player campaign, which is mainly there to teach you how the game works, with a bit of loose story tying together the battles. There's deathmatch and outpost domination, but this game was built for Capture the Flag, and the flag is your princess, and she loves the cake.
By feeding your princess cake, it makes her fatter, which makes her harder to carry, which makes your opponent's attempts to kidnap her even harder.
There's a nice balance here of distracting your enemy as much as possible and collecting resources for yourself to upgrade your own army, defending the castle, and launching a kidnap attempt of your own. Depending on where your team put the focus, it may be a fast and furious match or a gentle tug of war. And when you do finally bust into your enemy's kingdom and poach that flesh from the royal throne and make a break for it, it's really exciting. Kind of like getting a try in rugby, if I knew what that felt like.
When you spawn, you need to pick a hat from a hat machine, which is just like picking a class. Or you can pick a hat off a dead body on the battlefield, which is handy if your team doesn't have a healer at the time or if you just want to change classes. Villagers are especially good for sneak attacks or collecting resources.
You also have ranged units, warriors, and priests, and each of these units have another upgrade. And the priest, for example, the second tier allows you to be a dark priest and siphon the life of other enemies into your own. You can then switch back and heal your buddies, and I found the switching was really fun and really useful on the battlefield.
There are ice traps, and you can be turned into a chicken with a thrown potion, but usually it's quicker to just die and respawn rather than wait for the effects to wear off. It is kind of fun running around as a chook, though, Badge. There's no rogue class, so it's mainly AoE and ranged-based fighting. Fancy footwork is your friend, which also means if you've got a poor internet connection, it's gonna suck for you.
It's a bit messy at the moment too while people try and work out how to play the game, and I really enjoyed the Castle Crashers feel to the combat jump, but even with all the strategy in the game, I still felt like it was missing something, like a power-up or an unstoppable force that turns you into a massive hero for a time, like a giant or a dragon or a giant dragon.
I didn't think it needed that, Badge. I mean, it's kind of nice just working out with the rest of your team how to accomplish your goal, especially if everyone's on voice chat. It's a nice balance of classes.
There's a lot of moving parts to this game, and I think the variety is what keeps things interesting, especially on the levels where the tide and the magma are flowing up and down. I really like the style of it, Jung, but without any differences between the two factions, it all just got a bit repetitive for me. I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I liked it more than you, Badge. The music and the commentator was very dark fantasy meets gamer slang.
Help! We're being ganked!
And if you ever get tired of hack and slash, there's always soccer. A good team and a good connection will give you a good time with Fat Princess. 8 out of 10 for me.
We have captured the prisoner.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week?
It was another one of those most tasteless games, Chowaniki Bakuretsu Rentuhin, which apparently translates into Super Big Brother Laughing Violent Fray Chapter. It had a strange name, and it was an even stranger game.
Unlike the others in the series, this one wasn't a shooting game. Instead, it was a fighting game where you had to make two nearly naked muscle men beat each other senseless, like Samson, the series' best-known character, and Adam, a naked man in a half-moon bathtub.
It contained all the tasteless hallmarks of the other Chowaniki games, including lots of naked dudes and compromising positions, and although it's not that much fun to play, it's definitely a unique gaming experience, to say the least.
Well, that's about it for this weekend. I don't know about you, Jung, but I'm wearing my sad pants.
I couldn't tell. They look the same as your happy pants.
Oh, they're different on the inside. Pictures of stripes, polka dots, ninja stars, Peanut's face.
Next week, it's a remake of a game that helped invent the first-person shooter genre. The company is id Software. The game is Wolfenstein. And it's time we examine the fastest-growing gaming genre. Badge, I bet you can't guess what it is.
Oh, I think I can, Jung.
How?
I work on the show.
Oh. Until that time, gamers, make sure you jump on our forums and troll us. Our lives aren't complete without your banter. Junglist out.
Be nice to me, Bajo out.